Hey everyone, this video will get our hands dirty in Docker, and the objective will be set up a self-hosted version control system, which this video solution we have chosen Gitea. So it's a lightweight alternative to GitLab, and we'll be following the official documentation for the Docker installation. And as you can see, the compose file is here, and you can also set it up using a database, either MySQL or Postgres, where we process the data. We will do that, but we won't use the compose file exactly as they've shown here. We'll customize it a bit according to our needs, and also we'll protect the VPS that we set up using nginx reverse proxy, using the reverse proxy bit of nginx, so that we can force the traffic via the secure HTTP, which is HTTPS. So let's get started by installing Docker. So and for the VPS, I have chosen Civo. It's a cheaper alternative to AWS or Google Cloud, and it's among the likes of DigitalOcean. So let's just have this Docker 2. For this one, the small size view. For the operating system, let's go with this one. Initial user as root, the default, which we need to SSH into it. And firewall configuration, let's have it default as a, and then we'll, as we on video, I'll show you the firewall aspect of Docker and how how it manipulates the IP tables to bypass the firewall and how we can mitigate that part. So let's just create this, and I'll pause the video, get back once it's done. Okay, so our instance is up and running and have the box here in front of us. So let's just open. So first and here. Here. Let's just go here inside the box. CI just screen and okay. So right. So let's just change the host name. Docker, just exit. Okay. So let's follow the official documentation. Install Docker engine. First, we need to remove any prior instances of Docker which we have. Since we are already logged in as root, don't need sudo with this. Okay. Then let's update. It's available. Let's install the usage. I think these should already be installed. Yes. Then directory first over the Gitea. The /b command here basically says that if the parent directories exist, just create them. Then here adding the source list. It again. Okay. Okay. Then same docker so show and also we need docker compose. Yes. See those are done. Let's clear the screen. Check. We do version. Yes, we have compose and docker up and running. So for moving forward, I just since I'm a bit lazy, I'll add some aliases in the MRC file. Sorry, that RC. Let's go down. See, there are some aliases here. So let's have for Docker. So say if I do D, it will be Docker. Right. C Docker host. ECU say Docker host up and D force. Okay, but that's yes, I need one for logs, right? So if I CL, show me the running state, right? Those logs F, and if I add something here after this, so it show that for show the logs for a particular container if I pass them, right? But this should work. So let's say source into our RC. Sorry, RC. So yep, DC version. Yes, it's working. This is also working. Okay. So we have set up the aliases. Now let's if you don't know about Docker, so let's just try and run it. So let's say nginx, and let's say put both on the should be and do that in that's right. So it should be working on Docker run. Okay. So yeah, see what's happening. Able to find nginx latest locally. So which means that this is the name of the image that we're trying to run, and docker run basically specifies that run a particular image. So since it's unable to find it locally, it fetches it from the docker hub. Then for download a new image for nginx latest, and this is the container ID. So now if I do docker ps, you can see that nginx is running port 80. So this slash dash p directive is sorry dash p option specifies that in the container map port 80 to the local port 80 of this machine, this particular server. So now if I of this here with port 80, then it should be credentials, right? So and by HTTP slash slash we get the same thing. So we have nginx running. So we stop. We didn't specify the name. for it, so we need to stop it by container ID. Okay, now if we do PS, so PS is basically for process state, and it shows the status of the running containers. And as you can see, we have the one nginx container which is in the stopped state, right? So now if you want to delete this container, you need docker container or maybe docker rm, if I'm not the container. So it should be docker rm. Now if we do docker ps and all, we shouldn't see anything. And it's the stuff docker let's see, we have the latest image here, and the size is 142 MB because I think it pulled the entire mirror, pulled an entire operating system with it. That's why the size is 142 MB. So, but we, and now if we go here, since we stopped the container, you shouldn't be getting this. Okay, so so at the basics of the Docker CLI, but now we want to use everything with Compose, right? Docker. So for that, we'll make a directory and cd into it. Now let's make a docker compose.yml. So actually, I have the configuration open front screen, so I'll just type those, copy it from there, and show you what's going on. So first, we need to specify the version of Compose. Then we need the services for this one. Nginx. Right. Then we need to specify the image, which one we want to use. Then the container name, what do we want to name this container. Then puts, and for nginx, I think we need to export 80 and 443. Let's not do 443 as of now. And also, we need some volumes, right, to persist the configuration files. So some volumes, and how to read this is that everything on the left side is your host machine, and everything on the right side is within the container. So what this directive is saying is that take port 80 of the container and map it to port 80 of the localhost, right? So if I just check the file, right, it's the volumes we need are, so it's, we'll make a folder here. Uh, so this will be the folder in our local machine, and host, the container. Let's say nginx, and what's the file? It's another file for SSL certificates, since we are going to be using it, we are going to use a self-signed certificate to secure the traffic or server. Here is yes, my time zone. Time zone. See, and another. Let's see, local time. Let's see. So it should be. These are the volumes that we need. So basically what it says is that this volume inside the container, this particular directory inside the container, will be mapped to this directory in the local machine, right? So anything inside this will be mapped here, anything inside that will be repeated here, right? We are doing this because we will change the configuration of nginx quite a bit. So we don't want to go inside the container and make these changes, because every time we restart, those changes will not persist if they are made inside the container. So that is why make this changes persistent throughout through container when we destroy the container or when we restart the container. That is why we are persisting these the data outside the container, right? Then let's name it the next image which we will be using. And let's just have the next Docker hub. Let's have the Alpine image so that is a bit lightweight. So next search Alpine. So we get this. This is the start thinking. So mindful, and if we don't specify the version, we'll by default this is the behavior. It will take latest, it will take the latest one, and if you want to specify a version, you can specify it, right? Okay, so this is for I think this is all for the file. Let's write it, and how to run it is dcu, right? And if you forgot what dcu is, let's just tail in dot slash dash okay, dot slash stay last 10 lines of this. I'm sorry, -rc. You can see DCU is Docker Compose up in detached mode and force recreate, right? So the force recreate uh, option is basically telling Docker Compose to destroy any running instances of the containers and of services and restart them. So if I do DCU here, creating networks default. So now if I do docker ps, you can see that port 80, the local machine, is mapped to port 80 on the container. So I here copy the public IP, the box, and so the okay. Now if I want to shut down this container or this particular service, so that for that is docker compose down. Okay, we're done. Now, what we want to do is, what do we want to do? Yes, so we want to install Next with, we want to install Gitea and then protect Gitea using SSL certificates. Okay, so for that, let's download the certificates first, right? So cd Linux, sorry, SSL. Here we to get our certificate. So for that we'll be using SSL and this OpenSSL. We'll request a key, request a with RSA encryption. Then this is a switch an option. Then also the expiry should be 365. Let's have it for a minute. Uh, 509. Then let's store the files in TR and also the certificate we stored in let's call it cert. should work right here. The country here, India, state of Pence, full name, SSA, and locality, type DJ, and organization. What do you do? Let's do dev with video. I don't know. Okay, this is important. So if you are planning to run the server behind a domain, if you have a domain name, then you should type that domain name here. And since in my case I don't have a domain, I'm directly using the public IP to connect to my server. So here are the FQT and the public IP, right? So if I copy this and let's paste it, email address. This is not it's optional if I believe. Okay. So now if I do an ls -l here, see. Okay, sorry. Ls inside SSL. So okay. So what happened is I ran the command in uh, current directory, right? So that is why the certificate and key are downloaded current directory. So if I just do a cat here, see that this is the certificate. Just clear it and move it. The cert.nginx SSL cert.pm. So the key there. Okay. So else. And before adding a reverse proxy, let's just set up Gitea and let's see if it's working on both, right? And okay, okay. So for before so before setting up Gitea, I like to set up the database for the server because why I want to do that is uh, if you follow the documentation here as the official documentation of Gitea, you can see that they have used the stored the database as a service in the same compose file. So I don't want to do this. Rather, I want to have the database on a different network because let's say if I plan to run multiple services in this server and I want to use the same database. So it's better to have the database on a different backend network, which is not accessible the by the different services, right? By all the services. I hope that makes sense. Maybe it didn't, but once let me just get started with that and see what I'm planning, right? Okay, so as you can see, if I list the networks in the these are the default networks that Docker comes out of the box with. So let's just create a new network, Docker create, and let's name it backend. Okay, so now if I do ls, you can see that this is the backend network and it's using bridge driver by default, right? So now if I want to set up the okay, I want to download the database, right? The database container. So and also a management tool for maybe something like a GUI for administering the database. So what do I do? What do I do? Let's make a new directory. dir db. Let's do cd db. Right. So now here we docker start and let's go to insert. Have the version as 3 and we need a network here since we're using an external network. So that is what's the name? Backend start is true. So true. What else we have? Services. So we have services. One will be MySQL. The other one, let's call it phpMyAdmin. I'll use the GUI for this. Here we manage the container name, then ports. So my GPUs were 6, I guess. Volumes. And yes, when you're writing YAML files, indentation is very important. Keep that in. It's like Python, right? It has its quirks. So let's just see what else do we need. Services. SQL. Yes, we need also need restart policy, right? Let's say restart stop volumes, right? Volumes are say SQL data dot slash side the container path is bar left MySQL, which is MySQL container, also SQL. This is all right. And yes, we need to specify the networks. Networks is backend phpMyAdmin. Same config, almost the same. So let's just mistake. So which will be phpMyAdmin php container. So should be PMA. Let's call it PMA. Oops, yes. phpMyAdmin. So by default runs on 80, and outside the container, let's we have used 80 for nginx. We will be using 80 for nginx. So let's just have this as 81. Okay. Volumes. We volumes for this. I don't think so. But yes, we will need some environment variable for this. Environment. So one is MySQL. PMA. Sorry. So is and I think we spaces here. Absolute is the slash PMA. So for now, okay. So what this is doing is, since we'll be using nginx has a reverse proxy, so I'll have two routes in that. One is for the phpMyAdmin console, and another one for the actual Gitea service that will be running, right? So as of now, since we don't have the reverse proxy, let's just comment this out and let's see if this works. And another thing that we need for MySQL is the yes, password for the database, the password for the root user, right? So environment here should be MySQL password. So the recommended way of doing this is using a, what do you call it, a file where you store all your environment variables. So sorry. So, so this is how it should look. But since this is only for testing, I'll just hard code it in the control, right? But that is not recommended. So I'll comment this line and hard this. Let's call it what's the break password. Let's just save this. So do we have everything we need? Version is 3. We are using the backend network, and we have services running MySQL and phpMyAdmin. So the rich name is MySQL, container name MySQL. This, and yes, the PMA host is important because since we are using, and we can, this will work because since we are using the same network, backend network for these two services, so even though they will be running different containers, they will be accessible over the backend network using this hostname. This MySQL will be the hostname for this particular container, right? And that comes from the container name. And if you don't specify the container name, then by default it will take the name of the service as the hostname, right? So that is something to keep in mind. And now if I do docker compose up, okay, this file is invalid because container name. Okay, I made a typo. So let's go here and fix that. Alright, container. Let's try again. Okay, invalid because network stack and external. Okay. Hmm. External. External. Okay. External. Let's try again. Now pulling MySQL latest, pulling the latest version of MySQL, and then phpMyAdmin. Okay, phpMyAdmin. So now let's see if it's or not. Valid restart policy. Stop. Let's stop. Start. My bad again. It should be a hyphen and underscore. So this here. Then MySQL. So all of that is running. So what was the port for it? All port was 81, right? So now if I go to port 81, sorry, I go to one, I should see phpMyAdmin right now. Server will be MySQL, and let's say the root and the password is password. If I was and we are in. So these are the default databases, right? MySQL. So yes, we are on track. And last now we need to get on the actual tool installation, right? So let's back one directory and make the directory cd cd. Let's make a docker-compose file. Bucket. And here, okay, let's refer to my file. So we use the external network. The services are the server and right. So I'll just copy everything. Let's show you what's happening, right? So yes, version 3 Proxy database external is true. Image we are pulling Gitea, container name is Gitea, environment user ID Gitea, database type MySQL, database host is since as you can see this particular thing, this particular line environment variable will work because even though this is a different service, but we are using the external network to connect to the database, right? So that is why this particular hostname will get resolved. And then the database name will be Gitea, and database user will be Gitea, and database password will be Gitea. Everything is Gitea, right? So and start always networks database. These are the that we and for the ports. 3000 is the default port for, let's not use 3000 here and use it, and this is for the SSH, so let's use 83 as of now. Okay, so and yes, one thing that should not be done right now is this. So this root URL will fix this when I change that to when we use nginx as the reverse proxy, right? So let's copy paste it, right? So these are all just default values. Okay, okay, let's start this. Okay, right, database was the different. Should back it. Sorry, my bad, guys. Backend is also backend. Let's try. It's pulling the latest Gitea image from Docker Hub, extracting it, and it's done. So now, what's the port that we used? Port 80, right? So now, if I go to the sorry here, phpMyAdmin at port 81. So now, if I go to 82, I should be able to see it, right? Everything is set up here. So these values are populated from the environment from the Docker file, Docker file that we used, and then here the set title Gitea. Let's just keep this default as a, and this is the base URL, right? So this should work, and let's just change this. It's the database setting, right? let's change the password, or let's keep everything as default, right? The username is Gitea, password is this, database name is this. So now if I try to install this, password, yes, okay, settings are invalid, access denied for user 80. So what is happening here? It is able to reach the database. Let's just use the root, right? Let's use the user, the database, and then later we'll change the ownership to Wiki, and the password was password. Let's check the password, right? Q C D E R bin slash was, and so right. Install unknown database 80. Okay, database is unknown. So what we can do to fix this is, maybe if we try to go to forward, see passwords, so password, login, and create a new database. Okay, so maybe, so let's create a user, right? Get the host and password is the same. Create a database with same name and grant all privileges, right? So this is what we can do. Let's try. Sorry. Let's go and see that, yep, happened. Okay. So now by the installation, try, it should allow, and we are live, I think, since it's taking some time to load. Yep. You see what happened? Yes. This should be and forward. Great. Great. Yep, it's working. So basically, what happened is, the I think it got messed up. The root URL got messed up, so that's why it's not. So, but now it should work. So by default, there is no admin account in Gitea. So the first account that you create will be the administrator account. So if I do an admin, and let's just have a password. Okay, right. This is incorrect. We need to register. Sorry. So let's try admin. Admin test. Then password is so yeah, admin is reserved. So let's try admin underscore, and yes. So this is the default admin account, and if we go, site administration, you can see that you can manage user accounts from here. You can create a new user account, and also like there's a lot of stuff you can do here. And the good thing is it's hosted on a private server, right? So you can push your code here, and I'll show you everything. I'll show everything uh, slowly. So the application sources, settings, configuration. So yeah, this is the, you can see the configuration file path. So this is inside the container, right? So if you want to change the base URL now, you need to go inside this, change this, and then restart the container. And what else do we have? This is this. Right now, by create a, let's not do it with the admin account. Let's add this. Let's create user account. Okay, test. Okay, what else? Okay, we require user to change password. Has created, so let's log sign that sign in. Uh, so okay, your password. Okay, sign in. So here we can create new repositories. So let's call it test descriptions. First test victory, so victory, and need a get it create repository, right? So here now the thing we need to fix is this, since we did not specify a base URL, this is taking localhost colon 3000. So this will work fine if you're hosting it in your local machine, but since it's hosted on a private server, so this has to be fixed, right? So let's just set up nginx and fix this part so that everything is working. How to do that? Let's sign out here. We created a repository. We have now we need to, let's ls here, but we have the Gitea file. So the configuration file was inside the and app.yml. So these are the default environment variables that is being taken. So this root URL has to be fixed, right? So once we set up nginx, we'll change this root URL and see if everything is. So now we need to set up nginx. So what do we, so right? So we, right? We need a default file. Okay, so let me just put the stuff that we require for default file. So first have HTTP block which will redirect the request to the secure port. So and then Then we'll have the server block, which will be our vim and tabs. My bad, sorry. It's an on code 443 and SSL here. And what else do we need? Default server maybe. Also, we need the server name 7.0.0.1. And what else? This is done. Then we need our SSL certificates, right? SSL certificate, and the first one is the certificate is here. SSL we don't need SSL certificate key, right? So the certificate and also the key, SSL certificate, and the key is here. Key okay. And what else do we need now? Yes, we need to specify the root folder, and also direct. So we need, let's have a location block here, and the sub URL or sub path will be Gitea, right? And everything that comes here will be redirected to proxy. Let's have the proxy directive, and let's have http s colon slash slash the okay, what just happened? Did I save this or did I not save this? I did anyway. I did not save it. Sorry, I just paused the video and done. Okay, done. Right. Okay, so guys, this is the configuration file which we will need. So there are two server blocks. I'll just go through it once. There are two server blocks. One is listening on port 80, and basically every request that comes on port 80 will be redirected to the secure port, which is 443, and the other one is listening 443, and everything that comes here will be redirected to Gitea and VM. Right. So and here we are using the certificate that we downloaded, the self-signed certificate. One is the certificate and another the public key, right? So now another block that I'd like to add here is if the user just goes to the root, right? So I don't want to show the default nginx file. So here I'll add a proxy pass to this slash slash. This is the PM. This is the right. So slash explore repository. This is the URL, right? This should be Gitea, right? So now we have the default file, and if I check the containers, have phpMyAdmin and Gitea running, but not nginx. So since we have configured the reverse proxy, let's just do nginx and start the container. And let's just check the logs. If valid port mapping, valid string, something's wrong. So this okay, not Docker. My bad, sorry. It's wrong. It's wrong. Oh yes, yes. So this this okay. Since it's a direction, right? To from us rather third to one is column slash 50. Okay. See, next is running. So now what we need to do is cd slash 50 rather cd then but yeah, we need restart it cd slash 50 and then to change the root right. So 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 state here the last here the if should be working now. We see and if we go okay, let's see if it's working or not. Right, it's going to this reach. I can't reach. Let's check the maintenance logs. So something is wrong. Right. Right. Okay. So the port is blocked. Right. So where is the error? Maybe yes. I think I know where the problem is. So it's just verify. Right. Goes and maybe just need to add another port here, right? Since let's try see that. Go to open. So I do this certificate. Okay. Slash Gitea. Yes, we did not restart the service, right? So the debugging like live debugging, right? So did I restart Gitea? Did restart Gitea? Okay, I did restart Gitea. Yes, I know. So what happened is, you see, I made the changes in app.yml, right? But this file is not persisted outside the outside our VM, outside the container. So I think what I need to do is make a change in the cd sorry, that should be cd slash 50, and then goes here. I change, right. Here this IP. It is that IP. So if I just now see you, let's check the logs. Server is listening on 50,000. Hopefully this works. What is happening? Uh, slash see where it goes. Sorry about that. Demands. Is it available on port 82 or is it some other port? I think it was 82. Pretty sure it was 82. So I think everything broke with. So now I guess to check that I need to see docker-compose down. Yes. Okay. Gitea is running on port 82. These changes are these happen because you know why? These happen because I've changed the root URL, and let's just see this, right? Why this is a general message. Slash Gitea. Cannot find slash Gitea. Right. Okay. So the reverse proxy bit is working, but I refresh it. Yeah, the assets are not found because there is no slash Gitea. So for this to work, I need nginx to be working. Bad gateway. So how do you fix bad gateway? Uh, just look at the logs. CL. I would stream. Okay. So we're getting a request on this port, and the stream is here. Explores. There is nothing called explores. I'm not wrong, but this should be working. So, okay, I do save back. It's not working either. So how do you fix the 502 error? Okay, let's try this. Then max fig alt and I think there needs to be some sequence here. Let's see if this works. So this still getting the same error. Spam. Getting PMA from right for PMA also we need to fix that, right? So fix PMA slash db here and right. Sorry. Okay, so we're getting back here. So what's the error? What's the error? What's the error? What's the error? Back here. Uh, check 7 back here. Okay, so I figured out what the problem was. I'll just explain you about it. And basically, it was good old Docker networking. So, a mistake on my end. So, if you look at the networks available here, one is the backend network we're using, which we have our database set up here, and uh, Gitea is also connected to this backend network. And on the other hand, we have the nginx default network, which was created when we spun up this compose file, right? So if I do that compose, so when you run this compose file, you'll it sets up a default network, which is and the name is taken from the name of the service, and that's how it works, right? So its default network is created, and there is the backend network which we are using to host our database and Gitea. So now, if I show you the error, like you see, this is a bad gateway error. If I go to the uh, we go to the console, let's try this. You can see that there is the bad gateway error, right? So how do we fix it, and why is it happening? So now, if we just inspect the network, Docker network, and just copy the ID, let's try inspect. So this is the backend network here. Docker network. inspect before and then the so for the backend network you can see that the IP address is this, and it's quite a big subnet, right? So this is the IP and this is quite a big subnet. So now if you go and inspect the nginx network, you can see that, let's just remember this, it was 172.19.0 and dot, right? Here you can see that it's 172.23.0 dot. So there is no way these two can communicate, right? So when the nginx config file, if I show you the config file, that on default. So here when we are using the proxy pass directive, and let's say when we hit this particular sub URL, and then we are passing it on to localhost port 81. But the thing to notice here is that this configuration file is running inside the container, right? Inside the context of the container. So inside the nginx container, we don't have any service setup on port 81 and on port 82. So that is why it's unable to fetch it. So if you want more clarity on that, let's try curl here from my localhost. If I curl here on this address, you see I am getting the HTML page of the phpMyAdmin, and if I curl to port 82, I should be getting the Gitea page, right? You can see /Gitea, this is the HTML page of Gitea. And now if I do the same thing from within the nginx container, let's just get the IP, sorry, the container ID, and how is it? Let's go inside the container. So this is the command to enter inside the container environment. So docker exec, which means execute, -it means this option specifies the interactive terminal, and now then the container name, and now which command we want to run inside the container, right? So sh means basically shoot up the shell. So here you can see we're inside the nginx container. From inside here, if you do a curl command, sorry, it should be http, right? http infects 127.0.0. and the port was 81, right? If I do a curl from inside the nginx container, you see that it says fail to connect because there is no service running on port 81 within the container, right? And similarly, if I do a if I try to do the same on port 82, see that the connection is. So how do we fix this? So to fix this, we need to explicitly direct the nginx container to use the localhost network. And how do we do that? So let's exit out of here. Sorry. And now let's go to our docker compose file. And here you can see that we have two ports exposed. But these are from within the nginx container, right? It basically is saying that from the nginx container, I am repeating myself, I know, but just to make things clear, from within the nginx container, map port 443 to the to port 443 of the host machine, and from the map the container port 80 to port 80 on the local machine, right? So now if I want to change this, let's just go here, comment this out, and but let's add another line which says that the network, we don't want to create a separate network, just use the default host network, right? So now if I go and save this, and let's right, so it's recreating nginx, and now if I docker network ls, and you see the nginx default network is still there, but I can remove this and it will still work. So docker network, okay, remove this. Now let's check the network. So they are available. We have the backend network and the three default networks that we are using, right? And now if I want to check the from, so let's go inside the nginx container. Okay, no such container. We
See, that's what happens when you use the force recreate option in Docker Compose. So every time the container gets recreated. So let's just copy the new container ID and go inside the container. And now if I curl on localhost port 81, I should be getting the page, right? And similarly, if I do try to fetch the service running on port 80, we get the pages. So now everything should be working and this should work. Yep, we have our self-hosted, what is it? But self-hosted version control up and running, and it is also protected by a self certificate, right? And self-signed and self certificate. And let's try the PMA that admin dashboard for MySQL and connector as well. MySQL and the root password if I remember that. Yep, we're able to log in and you see that the database is present here, right? Database that was created by Gitea. Let's just log out of here and what do we need to do? And yeah, let's see if the redirection is working. So by default, in the nginx config file, let's just exit out of here and cat config.yml. As you can see that whenever a user is trying to access the root of the page, we redirect him to the repository page, right? So let's see if this works. Yep, we have it working, right? So I already have a test repository set up and this does not contain anything. So let's sign in to our account and let's try pushing something into the repository, right? Username is what is, yep. So you can see that the HTTPS, we're getting the HTTPS address for the remote branch, right? What do you say? The remote origin. You're getting the HTTPS. It's secured via the self-signed certificate that we used, and this particular base URL is coming because we specified it in the config file app.ini file of Gitea. So you want to check that. So let's do them here. Next, sorry, it should be dot slash Gitea slash p. Okay, another one. On app.ini, right? So as you can see, the root URL is specified here, and that is why we are getting this. And if you see all the different locations, like this is a hyperlink in the page. If you look at the bottom left, you can see that the base URL is the HTTPS is the protocol specified by the server IP and then the subpath, right? So that is how it's working. So now let's try to add a repository. Let's say I do have git bash here. Yes, let's make a new directory. Git test and let's cd and git test and let's say file with read md. Okay, read only option is set, right? Okay, then what did we do wrong? So yeah, we have hello. So now let's initialize the repository here. Get in it. Initialize configure repository, and let's try git status. Yep, have our file here, and git add git okay, SNF first commit. Yep. So have the now step. Yep, have the commit. Now let's add the remote repository. Right. Remote add. Let's push this. Let's push hyphen or okay, unable to access self SSL certificate problem, self-signed certificate. Okay, fix this. So I think we need to whitelist this particular URL. So let's just use, check it out. Git add repository git, certificate, right? Certificate. See what it's saying. Okay, okay. Get self-signed certificate of remote server. So patch the output into a file called this. Okay, and get certificate is answered. Okay, so we just need to get the certificate. Then what do we need? Configure get to trust the certificate. So this is how we do that, right? So we need to add a entry into the global configuration file basically and point it to the certificate file, right? So how do we do that? Let's get our certificate first. So click here. Where is it? Should be here, right? Cat SSL certificate. Yep, we have our certificate here. Let's just copy the content and where do we paste this? So get config global somewhere here. So let's cd into have some certificates. Let's make a new file. Then cert paste the content. Save this. And now what we need to do is configure get, right? So I paste this here and let's just change this to the home folder. Hopefully works and okay, this works. And now push not a git repository or any parent. Alright, yes, we need to add the remote. Uh, not, alright, we're not in the git repository, sorry. cd dot slash git yes. And now that origin already exists, so we should be able to push now. I think, yep, pushed it right. Now if I here, yes, have the repository ready, and you can see it has a GitHub style markdown where the README content of the README is shown in browse the repository. So let's try and edit some more. Then add dot uh, hyphen and let's do git push and then origin. Sorry about that. Origin And now if I go here, you can see the changes are reflected. And if you want to see the commit history, it is available here. The thing is working. So I guess that was all for this video. So a brief recap of what we did. So let's go to box and let's run docker this to see this. But just a brief recap. So we have 3 containers running, or maybe 4. One is Gitea, the self-hosted version control solution that we set up in a virtual private server. Then there is phpMyAdmin as also running in a container, using which we get to visualize the database, MySQL database. And if we need to create users and all that stuff, we can do this using this web interface. And also there is the nginx service, which we are using as a reverse proxy, right? So one important thing that we also explored was that also found out was that Docker networking is quite important when you are using Nginx with Docker, and I hope that was clear. And one last thing that I would like to add here is protecting the box with firewall, like setting up the firewall and protecting the ports. So what I mean is that, let me go here and let's say telnet. What is the IP? The IP, right? Telnet, and let's say port 80. Yep, where you can connect to it. So even though what I'm trying to explain is that even though we have set up traffic into the server only through ports 80 and 443 using an nginx, but if I try to access Gitea on port 81, we'll see that, yep, this is working, right? This is working. So we don't want this. We want it to be secure. Yep. So Gitea, this actually is there is a resource error, because if I just like the pages are broken, it's because this particular URL, because we are using nginx as a reverse proxy, and /82 is something that we have not configured nginx to serve, right? That is why index.js is unable to find that URL. That is why you get the index page, but not the style sheets, right? The style sheets fail to, the static resources are failing to load. But nonetheless, we want to stop this behavior, right? So we are able to access the service through port 82, so we want to stop that. So how do we do that? So for that, we need to configure the firewall. So let's check the status. So the status is inactive, so let's add some rules here, right? See, yes, let's add a default global deny rule, w default deny incoming. So all incoming connections are AU, AU, deny incoming. Yep, all incoming are denied. Then let's say allow. All outgoing connections are allowed. Fine. And let's try add some specific ports, right? So UFW allow for SSH I'll need 22, for HTTP I'll need 80, and for HTTPS I'll need 443. So now if I do W show added, you can see that these 3 rules were added. And now if I want to enable it, I can force this UFW enable, right? Command may disrupt existing SSH connection. So that should not be the case, because we are allowing port 22. So let's just go on with it. Yes, firewall is active and enabled on system startup. Okay. So now if I do w status, you can see that the status is active, and these are the rules that we have set up. So you might think that this fixes the problem, but if I go here, you see. still available. And if I go here, that is still available. So you might be thinking that the firewall is not working, but actually what happens is when you use Docker as a service, it goes ahead and creates some entries in IP tables, which using there are two IP table. It creates two IP table chains. Like if you go to this URL, it's well documented here, and like solve this issue is that, and what actually happens is that Docker creates two chains named Docker user and Docker in the IP tables, and these take preference over the firewall chains, right? So whatever you specify in the firewall, if Docker has specified something which Docker has, if the Docker service has specified something in the IP tables, it will take preference over that. That is why even though in the firewall you are only allowing these ports to access your box, you're allowing access to the box using these ports only. But in the backend, Docker has specified another rule. So if I just show you IP tables L, this should be the command, right? Yes, this is the command, and these are all the chains. And you see, this is the Docker user chain, which is allowing all protocols from anywhere to destination anywhere. So basically, what is happening is that if when you spin up a Docker container and you map ports from the container to your local host, Docker will by default allow any connections to those ports in the host, right? So how to solve this is that the recommended way is to add some exceptions in the restrict connections to the Docker host in the IP tables itself. So this takes preference over the firewall rules that you have specified. So in the IP tables, use the Docker user chain, and here select the interface, and then if the source is not this particular IP address, just the job to be done is drop that connection, right? So now the thing to figure out here is what interface would you be using, right? So here they are specifying extif, and you can see that, please note that you will need to change extif to the current to correspond with your host's actual external interface, right? So now you need to find the external interface of the host. So let's try and do that. IPADDR. Okay, so this is a bit intimidating. I wasn't sure that these many interfaces. Uh, and this is the local host. This, this are these. This I think is the, yeah, this is the EN01, right? So this should be working. I should be working. So how do we do this? Is IP tables -i docker user -i drop the connection. So this not hyphen s slash this hyphen s option is specifying the source of the connection, and this exclamation point is negating it. So that is basically saying is if the source is not this, then drop the connection. So let's just try and see if it works, but this could break a lot of stuff. So, and how do we revert? Never mind, let's just try this. Tables docker user, here the interface is enp1s0, and the IP is this 192.0. Okay, this, this should work. So now if I try this, yep, it's blocked, right? But also, like, did we break the services? Because it is from here, we're getting it from here, so that's a relief. getting it from here. But if we try to telnet on port 81, you see it's unable to connect. So also if we try another one, tell it's the port, so it's the host. Okay, could not open connection, and let's try port 82. It's still not working, but ports 80 and 443 should be working. So port 80, see, they're in, and let's try telnet port 443, we're in. So let's try telnet port 22 for SSH, we're in. See, so that's how you set up the firewall. And another way to do this is, let's say, where is the box? Sorry. Another way to replicate this behavior is without actually changing the, if you don't want to use the IP tables, because here we are like, okay, the, what do I want to say? What do I want to say? This is a bit hard. Another way to do this is in the compose file, right? From docker compose. So here, okay, we don't have ports open here. So let's check a different compose file. Dot slash Gitea compose. Here, if you want to block incoming connections from the host, and what you can incoming connections from outside on the open ports, what you can do is specify like this 127.0.0.482, right? So this is another way in which we can uh, prohibit incoming connections on the services port that we are hiding via the reverse proxy, or rather trying to hide via the reverse proxy. This is another way to do this, and the recommended way is actually setting up the cloud firewall, right? So here, if you can see that the Docker instance is running and the firewall is the default one that we are using. But if we want to restrict coming connections to specific ports only, we can use this particular firewall that is a custom one that I had written. So this basically allows connections to ports 80 and 443 for web requests and SSH for logging into the system. So if you want to check the configuration of this firewall, let's just go to the firewall section of the box and check the rules here, right? So see, the two instances are using it. So these are the inbound rules that I have specified. So ICMP connections allow from all, and TCP connections on port 443, 80 and 22. So only allow these three ports to be used while connecting to the box, right? And outbound rules, all outbound requests are enabled by default. So that is how the firewall works. And see, this particular firewall rule is being used by two instances, Docker test and Docker 2. So if I go to compute and so I think we're done for this video. Like I have covered everything that I wanted to show you guys. So just another brief recap. Right, this right. Docker PS. So 4 containers running. Nginx has a reverse proxy and MySQL as the database, and phpMyAdmin as the service. Okay. So that was all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. And yes, everything, all the config files and all the YAML configurations that I have written will be shared in our GitHub repository. You can check it out if you want to replicate all of this in your own private server. And I guess that's all for this video. Thank you for watching if you stayed till the end. And yes, like, share, and subscribe, I guess. Okay, bye bye. What do I stop?